Good morning, everybody. This is Jim Feist in Las Vegas, and I'm joined today by Joe Mack in New York. And Joe, how's the weather up there?
Oh, we're getting ready for a hot stretch this weekend, Jim. We've really only had one touch of 90-plus degree temperature, but all the weather people are saying that we're going to hit 4 or 5 straight days of 90-plus. So it's going to get a little sweaty. It's been nice right now. I wish it was a better baseball season for my Mets. It's been a disaster. I'm watching them night after night, and I don't know why. But anyway, I enjoy the sport still, but it's been a painful season watching the Mets, and what can I tell you?
They need to do something with some of those pitchers that they have and get some value back, because they're just not going to build a team that can't score runs. I mean, of course, injuries do play a big part in it, of course.
Right.
Well, I know you might get weather in the 90s, but I'm sure if your humidity's in the 90s, it's got to be really unhappy there.
No, it's going to be sweltering this weekend. I'm sure the air conditioners will be going full bore everywhere. I know it's always, when I see the weather and I see Las Vegas weather, I see how hot it always is, but we're not used to that. But you know what? We always get a couple of these hot stretches, so I guess leading into a midweek 4th of July this year, I think we're going to have a lot of folks in the AC and a lot of folks in the pools and beaches around here. So that's good. They'll be all thinking about that, but I'm reading up on a lot of football. That's all I know.
Well, speaking of football, we're going to start off today by doing a division. We're going to start with the AFC South. Of course, we got the Jaguars, who did quite well last year. The Titans also got into the playoffs. You got the Colts trying to bounce back. We don't know about Andrew Luck. And you got Houston also trying to bounce back with some of the injuries, a lot of the injuries that they had last year. Both those teams were 4-12 last year. And, you know, it comes back to, do we know enough right now about these players that were injured last year, and will they bounce back?
No, you're certainly right. I mean, you're looking at a team like Houston. There's been a lot of talk of, going worst to first. We've seen a lot of teams do that since the NFL realigned in 2002. We've had a number of teams that were 4th place and wound up next year 1st place. And I know there's a lot of sentiment that maybe the Houston Texans can be a team like that. I tell you, Jim, if you look at the over-under totals, which I know are very popular and getting a lot of action from what I understand, they have the Houston Texans as over 8.5. So you have to have a winning record. I mean, you're talking about a team that only won 4 games, but as you said, a lot of injuries. But this has been kind of a state team with injuries over the last few years. Obviously, J.J. Watt, I mean, he only played 5 games last year. He's their most important player on defense, their heart and soul player. But, boy, to me, he's got to show me he can stay on the field a little bit more. And they had injuries all throughout. And obviously, the quarterback last year, who was so good, Deshaun Watson out of Clemson, wound up throwing 19 touchdowns, only 8 interceptions. But same thing, he only played about half the season, and then he got injured. So they've got to keep those guys on the field. I know that's stating the obvious, but this is a Houston team that seems to, one year after the other, either their whole linebacking core goes down at once, or a couple of pass rushers go down, or they've got offensive line problems in recent years where guys either weren't signed or got hurt. If they can keep it together, this roster is not bad at all. They're coming off the season where they went 7-9 against the spread, which is not terrible, especially when you consider that Houston failed to cover their last 5 games of the year. Now, they were kind of mailing it in at that point, but still, you're looking at a team that was on a 5-game spread losing streak at the end. I think they're capable of turning it around and maybe being a 9-win team. But if you tell me right now that J.J. Watt is only going to play 10 games or less, or that Deshaun Watson is going to miss a month of the season, they're not going to go anywhere. That's plain and simple. The Texans have to be full force right now in the AFC South.
Well, I think the question comes down to how good are these teams in the AFC South? I mean, I look at Jacksonville, and I know they play. They did well last year, and they could have gone all the way. However, they're not very impressive on the offensive side of the ball, and the quarterback is always questionable there. They play hard defense. They're very physical. You got Tennessee pretty much with the same issues with the quarterback situation, very inconsistent. Tennessee, they bring in Mike Vrabel. They got LaFleur calling the plays, the offensive coordinator, and Dean Pease on defense. What do you think of those two teams that made the playoffs last year? Are they really that good that they can't be overtaken by Houston? And of course, I'm going to bring up the last team in the mix, the Colts. We have no idea what's going to happen with Andrew Luck. I mean, missed the entire year last year, and they played around with the injury reports and everything with that. Oh, he might be playing, he might come back, and and little by little they fed us all that BS. They bring in a new head coach in Frank Reich. They got a lot of changes. Offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, all changed. Everything has to blend for them to make any kind of headway, and Luck has got to be healthy.
You said a lot there, Jim. I'll tell you one thing that kind of blew my mind. I mean, obviously we all follow every week of the NFL and we follow the playoffs, but I was looking it up and I said, can you believe it? The AFC South, which, let's face it, takes a lot of criticism and slings and arrows from people on the outside. The AFC South won 3 playoff games last year, better than anybody in the AFC. And if you look at it, better than the AFC North. The only team made the playoffs, the Steelers, did not win a playoff game. And the Patriots won 2 playoff games before losing the Super Bowl. So for all the criticism that comes down on the AFC South, and rightfully so, they did actually win 3 playoff games this year. Now let's touch on the teams, as you were saying, Jacksonville. To me, they're like an old-fashioned NFL-type team. Obviously, running the ball, stopping the run is their claim to fame. Also, their pass defense, number 1 last year in the league, as many people think they have the best secondary in football. And one thing about them, they had plus 31 sacks last year, which I'll go over here in a second because you're talking about the other team. Indianapolis was minus 31 in the sacks, and here's Jacksonville plus 31. And it's amazing that Jacksonville was that close to beating the Patriots last year because really nobody saw that coming. Nobody saw, they slugged it out with the Bills in the playoff game and won one of the worst watched playoff games ever. And then they beat Pittsburgh in Pittsburgh, almost beat the Patriots. And yet you and I are really on the same page here. We're really not sold on the Jaguars. You don't know what you can do as far as trusting Blake Bortles. He did look pretty good in the playoffs. Had a couple of rough throws in the second half of the Patriot game, but really got to give him his due. He played fairly well. He certainly played well in the Pittsburgh game. And they've got a running back now that, if he stays healthy with Fournette, Leonard Fournette, this is a guy that looks like he can put up 1,500 yards, 10 to 15 touchdowns a year for the foreseeable future. But I'm not totally sold on all their talent. Sooner or later, their wide receivers are going to have to come up and play some big games, and they really don't have a great receiving core. Right now, Jim, they're the shortest odds as far as a Super Bowl winner from that division. They're listed at plus 2,000, which is, you win 2,000 back on your $100. And I thought that was a little bit of a long price considering where they got last year. But maybe the folks who make the prices and whatnot, they're looking and saying, maybe they're not for real. And again, I'm not totally sold on Jacksonville. I think they're a playoff team. I think they should be the favorites to win this division. I'm not sure you're going to see another run in them like you did last year. As far as the Colts, you're right. With Andrew Luck, that was a mess last year. But I was just reading up this morning, and according to reports, he's been throwing. He's not reporting any shoulder problems right now, and apparently he's going to get a group of his wide receiver teammates to join him in California for the early part of July and scrimmage and, work out there. So we'll see. Let's face it, the Colts without Andrew Luck are not only bad, they're almost unwatchable. And if they can have him back, let's face it, they've become a much more exciting team, a team that could threaten. I mean, their total is only 6.5 over for the year, so it's not a whole lot is being expected of them. But if you tell me right now that he's on the field for the start of the season, I think the Colts are a 500 team, with a break here or two, maybe a winning team. So, lot to decide with the Colts. You got to look at them. They were 29th in the league last year in total defense and 30th in passing offense without luck. Really bad, a bad team, as you pointed out. They were a 4-win team last year, and they're just a team that looked like their window of opportunity was a few years ago, and now you wonder if they're ever going to get it back on target here.
Well, absolutely. You said a lot there. The one thing about the odds to get their 2,000 to 1 on $2,400 on Jacksonville, but when you look around the AFC, and I'm not here to knock the AFC, but I have to. You look at the Patriots in the East. That's really about the only team that's really any good, unless somebody comes up from nowhere and challenges them. Pittsburgh's on a decline. All those teams in there, the Browns, the Bengals, and the Ravens are all, maybe the Ravens can bounce back with a good year. That's possible, but I'm not really in love with them. And then you go out west, you got San Diego, which to me looks like, to just my own opinion, they look like the best team in the West. Denver maybe second. I don't particularly care for Oakland at the moment. I think there's a lot of holes there that they got to fill. They're brought in a lot of veterans. But when you look around the AFC, there's not that much power. The NFC is much better. There's a lot of teams in the NFC that can really do the job. There's a lot of talent. So when you look at this AFC South, you're looking at Andrew Luck, was as a question mark. You're looking at Watson, who had the big injury last year, who's also a question mark as to how he's going to come back. Blake Bortles been up and down. These are the quarterbacks that we're talking about. Mariota, he hasn't really developed into what they thought he was going to be. So there's a lot of question marks for not only this division, but the entire AFC. Now, somebody's going to come up and have a good year, and somebody's going to make it to the Super Bowl. But where's it going to come from? I don't think it's going to come out of this division. However, if it does, it's probably, in my opinion, it's probably going to be, you got to stick with the team that made it last year with Jacksonville. But there's something about that team that just doesn't excite me, and maybe I'm looking for a worst to first with maybe somebody like the Texans.
I can see that. I'll tell you what, you look at the schedule to start the season, Jim, and Jacksonville opens at the Giants. Now, I've seen the odds, the Jags are a road favorite here. The Giants are getting a lot of positive momentum. Remains to be seen where they stand and whether Beckham signs and all that other jazz. But if you look at the Jags schedule, they play at the Giants and then they host the aforementioned Patriots. So, it's possible that even though they're the favorite here in the AFC South, they could get out of the gate very slowly at 0-2. It's very possible. And I tell you, the team that I didn't touch on, you're talking about it, is Tennessee. New coach in Mike Vrabel. But you're right. I like Marcus Mariota. I really thought he was going to be a guy that within 5, 6 years of his NFL career, you might be looking at a guy that's MVP-like. But he has regressed. I mean, he made a couple of big plays to help them beat the Chiefs in the playoffs where they came back from nowhere to win that game. But let's face it, that he's not been the player that they thought. I mean, he has a minus touchdown interception last year. You look at that Tennessee team, they can run the ball, number 1 in the league in rushing, 202 yards a game. But all their other areas are weak to mediocre at best. And, they have them listed as winning 8 games this year as an over-under. The line is 8 over. And to me, that's what they look like. They're a 500 team, give or take a win, unless Mariota can really make the big step up. I think they've defined their ground game a little more. I think you're going to see Derrick Henry, the old Alabama Heisman winner. I think he's going to probably carry the ball every bit as much as Leonard Fournette is going to do in Jacksonville. But until Mariota shows that he can make some deep ball connections, and I'm not sure that, I know it's a new staff there, I'm not sure they think he can, that he's very accurate beyond the medium range pass. He's got to show something. This is kind of make or break for Mariota. I'm not saying he's going to lose his job in 2019, but he's got to show me something here. Tennessee, to me, should be a better team than what they are. Last year, they were a 500 team against the spread. I have them down as 8-2 last year. I just would like to see this team make a little bit of a step forward, but I'm not sure they have it in them. I mean, their defense, to me, should be a little more dominant at times. I mean, last year they gave up 35 points in the Patriot playoff game. They gave up 27, 25 points in other late regular season games. I'd like to see him be a little tougher. 20. Jacksonville is a physical, tough, old-fashioned team. Tennessee used to be that way, but they've gotten a little bit away from it. And Tennessee has to be more reliant on Mariota. He has to take the step forward. If not, again, an 8-8 is probably in the offing for them. And I'll tell you, when you just take first glance at this division, Jim, you and I are like, we're not in love with Jacksonville. We think Houston has potential. I mean, this could be a division where basically everyone is 7-9, or 7-8, 8-7 going into week 6. Into the last week of the season, and it could be one of those years where like a 500 team could make a playoff. It's not out of the question. I don't think it's a division that's going to have more than one playoff team. But the guys to watch are Mariota, obviously the quarterback, Luck with Indianapolis, and I want to see if the Texans can stay healthy. If they stay healthy, I think the Texans can win the division with 10 wins. If Watt misses at least 5 games and Watson misses any game, I wouldn't trust the Texans to do anything special.
You said a lot there, and you're right. We got two teams that totally changed their coaching staffs. Indianapolis, new head coach, new offensive coordinator, new defensive coordinator. Same thing with Tennessee. Even though Tennessee made the playoffs last year, they changed every coach. And there's going to be a lot to be said there because, it's like a marriage. It's like this is like a first date with these guys. They got to go out and they got to get along. They got to see eye to eye. The quarterback's got to go along with who's calling the plays and all that. So there's so much to learn. So the first part of the year might be very rough for these teams, blending in all those head coaches, offensive coordinators, and defensive coordinators, along with everything else that goes along with the football team. So that gives a big head start to Jacksonville and Houston, who's come in with the same coaching staffs and the same quarterbacks that they went in with last year. So I think that gives both those teams a head start. Now, who ends up with the best record at the end? That's going to depend on how they gel, how they mesh, how they get along, and of course injuries. So there's a lot there. Personally, I have a little bit of money on Houston Texans to go and win this division, and I'm not saying that they're going to have a great year, but I could see them getting 9 wins.
I could see that. I'll tell you one thing that you touched on with the new coaches. Not only are they new to the division and everything, they're brand new guys. I mean, Vrabel obviously has been around a long time, and as an assistant coach, a linebacker coach, a defensive coordinator, he's never been a head coach. Neither is Frank White. And let's face it, we know the whole backstory on the Colts. Right after the Super Bowl, they wanted Josh McDaniel of the Patriots, the offensive coordinator, and he left them at the altar, which was, you hear two sides to the story, but it was a pretty crummy thing for McDaniel to do, and really left the Colts holding the bag for about a month because they thought they had him signed, sealed, and delivered at the start of the playoffs. And of course, you can't be naming any coaches who are still active in the playoffs. And when the Super Bowl ended and McDaniel said no, well, it really was a gut punch to the Colts. So that organization got set back a little by that. And as you said, Jim, you're looking at new coaches, and these guys are spiffy brand new coaches. So they might have some growing pains early. I would agree with you there. So that's definitely advantage to Bill O'Brien in Houston, and it's advantage to Doug Marrone in Jacksonville. But those guys themselves have to show me a little something, too, because I'm not quite as high on both those guys. I know Bill O'Brien has been mentioned in the last couple of years for many different high-profile jobs, and honestly, I see him as an average NFL coach. And Doug Marrone, hey, I give him credit for last year and everything, but again, he was in a division that, as we're talking about in the last few minutes here, he's in a division where the Texans didn't have their quarterback for a while, where the Colts didn't have their quarterback, so he was able, and they played an easy schedule, and so, I mean, they kind of feasted off what was presented to them, and they took advantage of it, so we'll see what goes on. I'll tell you one thing plus about Houston that I've also seen. Now, again, teams change in the course of the year, of course, But as of now, the Texans are playing the, quote, easiest schedule in the league in terms of opponents' winning percentage, and they're actually playing 5 teams that have new coaches. 2 of them, obviously, the guys we mentioned. So could be a big advantage there on the sidelines for Houston. We'll have to see. Again, O'Brien has to show me a little something, too. Maybe be a little creative this year with his team, especially in these divisional games.
100%, I agree with you, and that's good news on the for my bet on Houston to win the division. So I'm happy about that. Joe, thank you very much for this. This is very insightful, and we'll probably maybe we'll do another one at the beginning of next week. We've got a lot of divisions to cover, and we'll just have to pick one to go with next week. Might take an AFC one or something, NFC one, I should say, and juggle it around that way. But this is great information, Joe. Thank you very much. Enjoy the hot weather that you're soon to get, and we'll talk again real soon.
Okay, it was a lot of fun, Jim. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.